Hello, guys, and welcome back to Draft Day 101's podcast on our draft review now that the draft's ended. And let me tell you guys, before we get into it, this was about thank the Lord that the draft finally came because this was an exciting draft. And Antoine, I'm pretty sure both me and you, were chatting on Skype while the first round was going on, and the Blake Bortles pick was the big shocker to me in this draft. Not the Johnny Manziel falling to 22, but the Blake Bortles kind of set all in motion the picks afterwards.
Yeah, my mock draft was. I think a lot of people's mock drafts, like the guys who were like the experts or had the nose, pretty much were like they were the ones who were shocked about the whole Blake Bortles thing because everybody figured that Jacksonville didn't like none of these quarterbacks in the first round, and there was a rumor that they even came out themselves and started that rumor that Jacksonville doesn't like a quarterback when the entire time they loved Blake Bortles, so there was no one who would jump them with St. Louis picking ahead of them and them looking to trade down, that St. Louis wouldn't have a partner because they know that possibly it could still get Blake Bortles, and Jacksonville didn't want nobody to jump them to grab the guy, so they lied essentially.
Right. And so let's get to it now, guys. This is me and Draft Day's top top teams that did excellent in this draft, and I recently years last year I didn't give anybody really an A or an even A minus maybe, but this year I've given three teams. I given one team an A minus, a team with an A, and a team with an A plus, and both me and Draft Day agree on these three teams. And we'll start off with my A minus, which was the Texans, and
Yeah, I thought they got great value in every single round, but they were supposed to. They're picking on top of the draft. They had the most to gain from this, especially if you're picking at number one. You're picking at number one. You are allowed to pick pretty much the top player every single round, and they hit on it, including hitting on the number one pick in Jadeveon Clowney.
right. And now at number two, for me, the A would be the Packers, and they were the only team I gave an A plus to in the first round for value and at that pick because Clinton Dix falling to them at 21 was an excellent pick, excellent value, and excellent need. But not only at him, but with Devontae Adams, pretty much is going to be the red zone threat at wide receiver. They're replacing James Jones, who they lost in free agency. Then they got Jared Abbrederis in the fifth round in this loaded wide receiver class. I really was surprised that he didn't go earlier than that, and he's also a great value pick there. And I just love what the Packers did at the draft, helping out Aaron Rodgers and also helping out this defense.
Yeah, I put the Green Bay Packers as my third best draft, not my first. I actually have the Oakland Raiders as a better draft because from top to bottom, I did not see a single flawed. Green Bay, there was a few picks in the middle rounds that I wasn't in love with. I mean, I liked the depth that they created with filling in all their needs as tight end, wide receivers, multiple wide receivers. They even got depth at cornerback, and the position they needed the most, they ended up with the best safety in Clinton Dix. I loved Green Bay's, but Oakland's with Khalil Mack, Derek Carr, Gabe Jackson, all of those guys, I gave them either first round grades or mid second round grades. They ended up with all three of them. Khalil Mack, one of my only three players that I ended up giving an elite grade to. And then they even hit in the fourth round with Keith McGill, where a lot of mock drafts I saw him as a second rounder. They hit with Justin Ellis, who if they wanted to convert to a 3-4, I'm convinced that the Oakland Raiders, if they played a 3-4, they would have a dynamic group because with Justin Ellis, Khalil Mack, Lamar Woodley, and even Justin Tuck fitting into a multiple type of position, I would love the Oakland Raiders to almost even move to a 3-4 because their personnel says so. They drafted so well. Even in the seventh round, I like theirs with Jonathan Dowling out of Western Kentucky. If you can get this guy in the seventh round, that's a talent worthy of taking that at that pick.
Right, and I wanted to correct you. I put the Green Bay Packers as my number two team, and then the Raiders, as you well explained, was my number one team. The team I gave the A plus to, here in this.
No, yeah. I gave the Raiders as the number one.
Yeah.
No, my number one. Yeah, I gave to the Raiders. Number two was the Houston Texans. Number three was the Green Bay Packers. I'm sorry, I got confused.
No, it's all right. But anyways, that is our top teams in this draft that we think that solidify at what they were picking at. They hit on all rounds. And now let's get to every time there's a winner, there is a loser. And to me, my biggest loser in this draft was the only reason why they didn't get a D minus or a D was because the value they got in the second round. You think I know where I'm going here with is the Carolina Panthers. They got a developmental wide receiver in the first round, and then Coney Ealy was a awesome pick in the second round. I was astonished that he even fell that low when you had the Cowboys that drafted ahead where I thought they were going to get him in the second round, and they got DeMarcus Lawrence. But Coney Ealy there, it's great value at a great pick, but they already have two defensive end starters. But I guess you can never have too much pass rush. And other than that, they didn't even help out their tackles there with I believe who left, what Justin Gross left. They didn't help him out. They didn't really get any other receivers I liked in this draft. And the first round pick was a receiver I didn't even value as a first round pick. They got him over Marquise Lee, even Allen Robinson. I liked a little bit more than him at times. And I just did not like the Carolina Panthers. And me and you both talked about how I think the Carolina Panthers are going to go from first to worst in their division, maybe.
Yeah, they could be in the bottom of that division, definitely. I was not a fan of their draft either, but if I had to put the worst, it might not be Carolina. I really thought about this even yesterday throughout, like, reviewing the play. Initially, I thought it was Carolina, but I looked at Kansas City, and I said, what day one starter do they have on this team? The only person who could possibly make any kind of contributions to me is DeAnthony Thomas. I don't like Philip Gaines as a starting cornerback year one. He's one of those guys you stick in as a backup cornerback, not a nickel, because he's not going to be able to play there, or a dime. He's not going to be able to play the inside. You develop him 2 years down the line, then you get your value. And then D Ford, that pick didn't make sense to me. I mean, the only thing I could also see as D Ford is possibly him as a rush specialist on third downs, considering Kansas City's a loud stadium, and I always thought D Ford with his quick twitch would thrive in a loud stadium. Kansas City has a loud stadium, but outside of that, I was not impressed with Kansas City. I mean, they got a lot of development players. Zach Fulton, I thought he was a developmental. Aaron Murray, he's maybe 2, 3, 4 years away from even being a legit backup. Laurent Touré-Tardif, he still doesn't know how to play football. I mean, this is a theme at Kansas City that you're getting guys that aren't going to be probably fillers for the next 3 years, and then this division's getting too good too quickly. You can't be affording to wait 2, 3 years for the guys to get good. A lot of your best players might be gone by then.
Right, and so I also would agree also on the Kansas City, kind of like an interesting spin on it, where most people thought they had an all right draft, but like you said, at day one starters, they got a lot of developmental picks there. They didn't really help their team win now. I would argue with that also kind of with the Patriots, but they did. If you do get any kind of production out of their first round pick in, I believe it, Dominique Easley, and I understand the Jimmy Garoppolo thing because they're looking for trade with Ryan Mallett, and over there in New England, they like to replace their backup quarterbacks through the draft, not really through free agency, and they don't mind letting go of their second round, their backup quarterbacks, but. I also looked at New England as I don't see really day one contributors there besides Easley, and he's coming off an injury.
Yes.
But other than that, speaking of free agency acquisition, this is by far, we have agreed, the best free agency draft class we have ever seen so far.
Class, yeah, I just loved it.
And there were some great players that went to teams that fit the need, and then to me, San Francisco got stingy when they drafted. I believe it was my favorite middle linebacker in this draft was the dude from Wisconsin, Chris Borland.
Portland.
And they got him. And then they get Shane Scove as an undrafted free agent. They have legitimately 4 middle linebackers that could be starting there. But I understand Bowman comes off an injury, so you do need depth there. And 2 more middle linebackers isn't a bad thing. Antonio Richardson, what people said was the number 1 undrafted free agent, goes to the Vikings there. I knew they already have 2 solid tackles there, as in Land Hall and also Matt Khalil. So I didn't really see how that fit, but he was also a great pickup for them. And anybody that stood out to you in this free agency that got signed to a team for you, Antoine?
Jackson Jeffcoat.
Oh,
he was my highest rated player that did not get drafted. Was Jackson Jeffcoat. I liked him. But obviously, I got into it. I don't mean to be bringing my Twitter arguments into this. I got kind of an argument with Phil Savage, the head of the Senior Bowl department, on there. And I talked to him. I was like, why didn't you invite Jackson Jeffcoat? He told me Jackson Jeffcoat's just not as highly thought of in the scouting community. You know, he came onto this a long time ago, and I was sitting there and I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I saw a guy who was productive, who finally started living up to the potential that he was put up against. He was an underachiever for 3 years. For 3 years, he finally went up there. And the story for me, the biggest story wasn't whether it was Michael Sam or Johnny Manziel or Jadeveon Clowney. The biggest story for me was that the fact that there was not a single Texas player selected in the draft.
Yeah, no UT player drafted at all since 1937. It's been
I could not believe that. I could not believe that. I never thought I'd see the day where there's a whole entire draft and there's not a single Texas player. And I always thought there was Texas players worthy of being taken there. I mean, there was guys from Saginaw Valley State. There was Concord Universities took him, but no Texas players.
Right. And that was also big. That was also a big headline here. But let's get to our next segment where we're going to talk about, I guess, on each individual team or teams that we liked that got great value at great picks. They're questionable picks. And let's go start it off at the Super Bowl champions. I guess we'll start off here with the Seattle Seahawks. And Pete Carroll's just doing what Pete Carroll does each and every draft. I literally, every time their first round to me is, I don't know what they're going to go with. They literally can draft a 3rd rounder here, or they'll get, a kicker. They surprised me, but I like the Paul Richardson pick with speed for wide receiver. They did lose Golden Tate, and most of these receivers that you see were undrafted free agents on these teams that won of a Super Bowl. But other than that, there were some questionable picks, like I think the 2nd pick from Missouri, a tackle from Missouri.
Justin Britt.
Yeah, I understand the need, but that was big time reach for me. And other than that, I think Seattle had an average draft, but nobody's going to question them because Pete Carroll put together this team and won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it seems like a theme that I never liked Seattle Seahawks drafts every year. Every year since Pete Carroll has come into Seattle, I've never liked not a single one of their drafts. But yet he proves me wrong, so I can't bash him too much because he's actually smarter than me. He's proven that he's smarter than me because every year I say Seattle Seahawks had a terrible draft. And I'm going to stick by my story and say that they had a terrible draft. I mean, it's not a terrible draft, but I was not impressed by it. Justin Britt did not like the pick. Curtis Marsh in the 4th round, probably more of a 6th rounder. There was a lot better defensive ends at that point. Kevin Pierre-Louis. I mean, there was a lot of players here. Even Garrett Scott from Marshall, who I wasn't a fan of. I mean, Keir Small from Arkansas. I mean, there was a bunch of players I did not like on almost the entire draft board. From top to bottom, I did not like. Besides Paul Richardson, but Paul Richardson, I would have maybe liked him a little bit later, but it's still in the 2nd round, but just maybe towards the end of the 2nd round. I thought maybe that might be his value, but at the same time, I did not like the Seattle Seahawks. If this was the New York Giants, I'm not the New York Giants, but the Cincinnati Bengals or the Cleveland Browns draft that they had done these type of moves, we would have bashed them all day long and said that they're a horrible team and they don't know what they're doing as an organization. But because it's Seattle, because they're world champions, because Pete Carroll's smarter than me, we're going to give them a higher grade than what they probably deserve.
Right. And so I guess we'll move down the list by we'll go at 31 to the Denver Broncos here. And Denver Broncos, I like their first. I don't really like Bradley Roby, but he went to them at 31. I guess the NFL draft listened to us about how he's blind as a bat. But the Cody Latimer pick I liked. For the more wide receivers, they did lose Eric Decker and they did replace him with a receiver who was getting first round looks, and they got him in the second round, which I liked. Other than that, I wasn't really they got an average grade for me here at the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I actually like the Denver Broncos draft a little bit more because Bradley Roby might not be your starter today, but he will be in the long term. I think Cody Latimer is going to pick it up really quick. So even if they wanted not to, I don't know if Demaryius Thomas's contract was extended. Was it?
I have no idea on that.
Demaryius Thomas' contract, whether it was extended or not. If they want to let him go, they have a very similar wide receiver in Cody Latimer. I mean, as far as 6'3", 215, doesn't drop the ball, big, fast, athletic wide receiver. Peyton Manning's been able to develop wide receivers rather quickly. If Cody Latimer picks up the offense really quickly, he might be able to make an impact, and they might be able to let go of Demaryius Thomas and save a lot of money because essentially Demaryius Thomas is going to cost them a lot of money when the time being for his free agency is up.
Right.
I also like Lemon Barrow. That he's probably going to be a starter, even though he's a fifth-round pick. If I had to put a bet on any player to start as a fifth-round pick, it'd probably be Lemon Barrow. Because the middle linebacker situation looks really shaky, and he probably would be the best middle linebacker on this team.
Yeah, I would believe so. Him at LSU
linebacker.
Right, and then we go to at number 30, it would be the San Francisco 49ers. And I think they had a good draft, a great draft. If the other teams we mentioned would have not picked the players they did, I would have easily put the 49ers in the conversation of good draft this year. Their first round pick, I believe they went with Jimmy Ward, which I believe they want. He's going to be playing nickel, as they said. Then they got Carlos Hyde, which, I wasn't really a fan of him, but other running backs went before him, so I liked the pick then. If the 49ers would have traded up and got him as the first running back, then I would have not liked the pick as much. But Carlos Hyde there, they always have now a group of running backs. I mean, Marcus Lattimore's coming back, and they have Kendall Hunter, LaMichael James. I mean, they have a lot of players here. Then a good tackle that I like that could be an even better guard, which is the Brandon Thomas pick out of Clemson.
I like him, and you could stack him and redshirt him as well, too.
And then they get a developmental player, which I did not like him slimming down. I liked him better at Notre Dame than I did at UCF. But Aaron Lynch pick, if they get him anywhere to the talent he was as a true freshman at Notre Dame, that would be also a good pick for John Harbaugh, too. And I also love the value they got for Chris Borland as a Mike linebacker. And he's going to be, I've told people he will be the best Mike in this draft. I like him better than C.J. Mosley as a Mike.
Wow.
But
wow,
yeah,
that's bold.
Yeah, and so that I like the 49ers draft from there. And their undrafted free agent signings is also pretty damn well.
Yeah, the 49ers are loaded, and they have depth, they have commodity. They don't have to re-sign people. So, this is what happens when you have all these draft picks and all this type of thing. You're able to save money. You don't have to re-sign those expensive players because you have good players that you could easily replace them with. Like Mike Kupata, his contract's probably going to be coming up pretty soon. They'll be able to let go of Mike Kupata and probably stick in Brandon Thomas a year from now. Because Brandon Thomas probably would have been a second rounder, maybe even a late first rounder in some people's eyes. If you replace him with Brandon Thomas, there you go. You have fits and needs, so you don't have to pay that guard all those money. One of the top 10 guards in the NFL, all that much money. You can pay Brandon Thomas, who went in the late third round. You know, the 100th pick in the draft. You get to pay him a little bit less. You save money, and I pretty much agree pretty much everything you said about the entire draft. I loved it. We can move on with not too much to discuss about in San Francisco.
And at the New England Patriots here, I gave them an all right, maybe like a C plus. I don't really have my draft grades there for them, but I like the Dominique Easley pick. The Jimmy Garoppolo pick was kind of like a question, but then it didn't surprise me because they did the same thing with Ryan Mallett. So, and also thought Ryan Mallett would be in trade talks within that day or the next day. But it seems that reports come in that Houston does not want to doesn't want to trade for Ryan Mallett. They said they like the quarterback situation they like here. But other than that, the New England Patriots, they had an all right draft. I didn't see immediate starters unless Dominique Easley comes back from his ACL injury and becomes an immediate starter for that team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have.
A year removed away from his ACL. I think he's going to be a starter. A role player. He's a different type of a player than Tommy Kelly or Vince Wilfork. He gives them a lot more pass rush from the inside, and the Patriots really struggled in the pass rush department. And if you can get a pass rush from the inside, it helps a lot. And he's versatile. Bill Belichick's going back to his olden days, have always loved first-row defensive linemen who can play 4-3, 3-4. Dominique Easley fits. As soon as he got selected, I was like, this is a Bill Belichick pick. This is a Bill Belichick type of a player.
Right.
I like him. And it seems that the Patriots are going away, or they went from spread with a whole bunch of wide receivers to the 2 tight end system, and now they're looking like they're going to start going into this more heavy run formation. And you can look at their draft. They picked 3 offensive linemen. They want the meat graders, and all of these offensive linemen that they chose in this draft are better run blockers than they are pass blockers. So it was an okay draft, but they're switching more of their offense more to predicating to the run a little bit more now, and being a more physical football team, because that's how they won the game against Indianapolis, as we remember last year, by running the football and being a physical football team.
Right. And so now I want to quickly kind of speed things up about our draft grades and picks. Let's go with 3 teams here: the Panthers, the Cardinals, and the Eagles. We already talked about the Carolina Panthers here. The question.
You already skipped those.
Yeah, and the Arizona Cardinals, they went to go get Dejon Buchanan, which will be a starter for them. He'll be their strong safety there. Arizona Cardinals defensive back is the second best defensive back group within that division, and could be a top 5 defensive back group in this league. The Logan Thomas pick was questionable, but the head coach there, the name gets away from me, but Bruce Arians, yeah, he had Ben Roethlisberger. This dude, he has the arm talent, he has the skill set. He just needs to bring his intangibles up and all that. I believe I told my friends, if he develops him and makes him play smart, he can be a top 15 quarterback in this league.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll go.
Along with spring chicken.
Yeah. And then we'll go with the Philadelphia Eagles. I did not like their Marcus Smith pick. It does fill a need, but I did not have him even rated in. I had him late second round, and that was like a big reach for me there.
You had him higher than I had him. I had him as a third rounder, mid third round, fourth round kind of player.
Right. And then that was the Eagles draft. It really doesn't hit me now, but they did get Jalen Watkins from Florida, which was the only corner from Florida that got drafted. I liked him a bit. Josh Huff, but Josh Huff went a lot earlier than I would have thought and would have liked from them.
Especially considering the familiarity with Chip Kelly, and Chip Kelly knows this kid and how hard his life has been.
Right. And so I like their little bit later round picks with Josh Huff, not Josh Huff really, but with Jalen Watkins, the nickel corner they will have there for him. But other than that, those teams were kind of got all right grades. They didn't really surprise me. They didn't really get players I was too ecstatic for there.
Mm-hmm.
And now we'll go to with quickly San Diego, Cincinnati, and Kansas. Well, Kansas City we already talked about, but we'll have a special segment for our Browns, I guess. But your Chargers, you want to go quickly about your Chargers?
Yeah, man. I came away really impressed with the first two picks with Jason Verrett, the corner that we needed, and I was afraid that we might have gone Bradley Rowe because it just seemed like a Chargers type of thing to do with to go to a more athletic guy, but. Our defense doesn't require bigger and more athletic corners. We need guys who could tackle in space, guys who have good feet work, and guys who have just pure coverage ability, not necessarily height, weight, speed guys. Jason Verrett fit that mold, and he fits the type of defense that we want to play. I like that. And then we were able to grab a pass rusher, which I just loved. As soon as it got happened, I was jumping up and down as a San Diego Chargers fan. I love the Jeremiah Tauchu pick. I like that. Chris Watt and Ryan Gathers, I understand depth guys, and we also needed a third down running back in Marion Grice. I like some of those picks. Tevin Reese later on, maybe as a developmental wide receiver. But overall, it was an okay draft. It wasn't the best, but we filled in pretty much every need from every round. I mean, like, we came away filling in every need.
Right. The Chargers draft, I like. I'm glad they went with Jason Verrett. If he was 6 foot, he would have been the best corner in this draft, arguably.
Yeah.
But other than that, we'll talk a bit about the Cleveland Browns, which their highlight pick was Johnny Manziel. But my questionable thing is they didn't get another receiver. And coming from Josh Gordon, from reports that they knew 2 weeks ago that Josh Gordon may be suspended for the whole year, and they're getting Nate Burleson just broke his arm recently, and he's recovering from that.
Greg Little can't catch a rock.
Yeah, and then then they have Travis Benjamin, the wide receiver from Miami, who's coming off an injury as well. And so, looking at that, you're looking at Lavelle Hawkins as his number one receiver, and I'm just saying, I really feel sorry for Johnny Manziel. He goes to a team that we said coming into this draft that can completely flip their team around, and I did not really see that at the 22nd pick, because we already spoken about how I would have not drafted Johnny Manziel in the first round. I didn't do it in my mock draft that we did here. I did like that they traded down in what they got for the 4th round pick, and I guess they were not sold at all with Sammy Watkins at 4. But they did get Justin Gilbert to pair up with Joe Hayden, which I said that's going to be.
Yeah, and they got a 1st round pick for next year, so they'll still be sitting around with 2 1st round picks next year.
Exactly. And so I like that. Other than the other Cleveland Browns draft, I did not like any of their other picks really at all. I like.
I like the Joe Batino pick, the offensive tackle from Nevada.
Yeah.
And I like Terrence West pick. If I had to make a prediction for a person who probably makes the biggest impact on this team next year, it's Terrence West.
Yeah.
And they ended up they had a whole bunch of draft picks, but they ended up only with how many picks did we have them before? I can't even remember. They had a whole bunch of draft picks ahead of time, but they ended up with only 5 draft picks at the end of the day because they traded up and they traded for future draft picks.
Right. And so, I mean, it's a smart idea. I guess they didn't like much of the players, but I said this was a deep class compared to next year's class. I think you could have gotten talent in the later rounds than you would of next year.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, the New Orleans Saints, I like their 1st round pick, trading up to get Brandon Cooks. They replace, I believe it's the wide receiver number 16 from them. It was the name doesn't come to me, but I like the fact that they got another receiver pretty much to replace him over there in New Orleans. The Miami Dolphins, most people were surprised with the Ja'Wuan James pick here, but I actually had him mocked here because I would have thought that Morgan Moses, which we'll talk about the Redskins later, that he would have been picked before here. But I like Jawan James better than the Buffalo's Bills pick at Cyrus Kwanjo there. The New York Jets, Calvin Pryor, I did not like as much. I do like him, but I did not like the Jets going that way with another defensive player, which I thought they could have gone with Brandon Cooks. Baltimore Ravens got C.J. Mosley, fills a hole, and then he's an Alabama player who did not see this coming, really, if he fell.
It was either going to be Clinton Dix or it was going to be C.J. Mosley.
Right, and I do like their other pick within Terrence Brooks, right, the free safety there to pair up with Matt Elam. I actually like that. Dallas Cowboys, they did it. Me and Antoine were talking about. I wanted Johnny Manziel just to go here to break Twitter, just to break Twitter, break the internet, to destroy the draft, to be the talk of the draft. But they were smart, and they got Zach Martin here for Notre Dame. He will be.
I really thought they were going to go defense all the way. Like they were going to be thinking defense. We got to bolster up this. They did not address the safety position until late in the draft, and then Ahmad Dixon is probably more of a special teams type of player for them, who was picked in the 7th round. So I'm looking at them right now in the draft. Considering the people that they came, I did not come away very impressed. Besides DeMarcus Lawrence, and I think Zach Martin is going to play guard, but guard at 16 was not their biggest need. That defense isn't going to – Tony Romo's protection is not the problem. Tony Romo and that offense is not the problem. It's that defense in Dallas that continues to be the problem. And outside of DeMarcus Lawrence, I really don't see any impact players that they have on that defense. I could see Dallas be picking in the top 10 next year, honestly, if they do not fix that defense, considering Tony Romo is coming back from an injury.
Right. Ryan Shazier with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he just looked like a Steeler. And I like the pick there. He does feel kind of a need. He'll be playing the other Mike linebacker there in that 3-4 defense. And I like his pass rushing and his speed more than I like C.J. Mosley's. But
yeah, I mean his speed is a lot faster than when he even ran in the combine. Supposedly at Ohio State he ran a 4.38.
Yeah,
which is like really crazy for that linebacker. And it shows his explosiveness. And you really saw the speed. It's not like the speed wasn't really part of his game. He always flashed. It was like he was like a missile, always blowing up things. Ryan Shazier was really a good physical specimen, and I also like the pick as well too. Him and Timmons bringing back kind of the old Pittsburgh Steelers type of mentality.
Right. Chicago Bears. I like the Kyle Fuller pick. I had him as my best corner as in intangibles, not by skill set. I like that pick there. And St. Louis Rams right now has the best defensive line with the Aaron Donald pick. And that, to me, is a steal there for them at 13. You know, most people say there's no such thing as steals in the first round, but I believe so. And I want to get quickly to that. The 3 biggest steals to me in the first round was Minnesota Vikings getting Teddy Bridgewater, our number 1 overall quarterback.
That was the biggest steal for me. As far as a first rounder, was Teddy Bridgewater falling to 32.
And I would go with St. Louis Rams Aaron Donald there, and I would also Clinton Dix to the Packers, and I'm going with Khalil Mack to Oakland because that to me, everybody for sure had Khalil Mack going to Jacksonville, going to St. Louis, either going 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4. Oakland was looking at the outside, looking in, trying to see if they would get Mike Evans, get Taylor Lewan, but they just. Their number 1, I believe, player on their board at what they were sitting fell to them, and I love that. That's why they got an A+ from both of us. Speaking of
they still got their quarterback that some people believe that they might have even took at number 5, Derek Carr. They love Derek Carr, and he fell to them all the way to the 2nd round. They stuck to their boards, and then they were able to grab that guy.
Right, and also that their first 4 rounds, I said they did phenomenal. They did excellent with their first 4.
I even like their 7th round picks. I've already said that. I mean, we're not going to get too far with Oakland because we've already talked about them, but I like their entire draft from top to bottom. If I had to say as far as depth goes, because they didn't pick they didn't get a whole bunch of steals, but as far as depth goes, I liked every one of their picks.
Right. And now the Detroit Lions get Eric Ebron. The more it looked nice draft day, but the more I think about it, I'm gonna say, like I told Antoine I said off podcast that Teddy Bridgewater, Aaron Rodgers, and Jay Cutler are happy because they really did not address the secondary at all still, and I like their defensive line. You know, they say defensive line helps build pressure on the quarterback, make bad throws, but I don't. The only quarterback that's gonna make bad throws in that division is Jay Cutler. Everybody else, I believe, Teddy Bridgewater at at the Minnesota Vikings is gonna be well there. And I like the Vikings, their first round picks for the Vikings with Anthony Barr there and Teddy Bridgewater. And Teddy Bridgewater, what he's surrounded with, I love that. They have Greg Jennings there. They have their big playmaker in, I believe, Cordell Patterson. They got a running game. They also have lovely tight ends and Kyle Rudolph. And they also have a solid offensive line. Their guards are maybe.
Yeah. Like I don't mean to be cutting in, but I also like Minnesota's draft as well too. Like you consider some of the guys that they got that can contribute as far as the offensive line. David Yankee and in the offensive line, you also got Scott Crichton from Oregon State in the third round.
Right, and their defense.
They hit on there Kendall James, who I caught his tape late, but as soon as I started watching him, I started liking him more and more. I think he could play cornerback or free safety. Him and Antoine Exum, both of them. Antoine Exum a year ago, if you had told people that he was going to be a 6th round pick, people would have probably called you either crazy or just dumb.
Right.
There was no way, but he wasn't able to stay healthy. He fell to the 6th round, but. Yeah, they got a lot of value in the first, I would say 5 picks of theirs.
Right, and I love the David Yankee pick. I mean, people were saying that he was the number 1 guard coming in. He played tackle, guard. He played all over the place, and the fact that they got him late, that Teddy Bridgewater's one happy man, Adrian Peterson's one happy man also as well. And I just love Teddy Bridgewater, the situation he's going to with the Vikings there. Going with other teams here, the New York Giants. I like the Odell Beckham pick. I really thought Aaron Donald would have been gone here. I would have liked Aaron Donald here with New York Giants because they do need some interior pass rush, but they went with Odell Beckham Jr. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Victor Cruz, and they get another LSU receiver. They had Ruben Randall out there, but they also get another quick guy he's a yak kind of guy. Also with Tennessee Titans, I like Taylor Lewan. They're kind of rebuilding their offensive line. Taylor Lewan will be playing left tackle because Michael Orr doesn't play left tackle at all. He's a good right tackle. Mm-hmm. And I like the Tennessee Titans.
It's a successor to
it's either Roos or
Roos.
Yeah,
Michael Roos.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Roos said he's eventually going to be a successor to Michael Roos. Michael Roos has a really huge cap hit at this point. He's 31 years old. They kind of play similar. If you had to say that there's somebody who reminds you of Michael Roos, it's probably Terry Lewan. They are very similar in the offensive line. I think one time I compared them to those two to each other. He's getting up there in age. 11th year as a tackle. You're thinking maybe he's not the long term anymore. So yeah. Taylor Lewan makes sense long-term wise, but it doesn't make sense as far as day one. And they also grabbed Bishop Sankey.
Yeah, which me and you both liked.
They were able to grab Bishop Sankey. They needed a running back more than any other team because I didn't see a starting quality running back on their team. And Bishop Sankey is probably going to be the first rookie to start as a running back.
Right, and I like Bishop Sankey. Him and Jeremy Hill were tied. Jeremy Hill, I understand there's going to be a 1-2 punch out there in Cincinnati, but I would have liked Jeremy Hill to be on another team. Speaking of Cincinnati, we didn't get really touch on Darqueze Dennard fills kind of a hole there. They draft another corner in the 20s yet again. They did. Drake Kirkpatrick hasn't lived up to what he's been, and also with I believe they got who's another Jeremy Hill there. And A.J. McCarron was really the highlight for them. And
Yeah.
A.J. McCarron going to the Bengals. And like you said, Andy Dalton's the reason why they get held back. Do you think they improved with A.J. McCarron?
I don't think A.J. McCarron's going to beat out Andy Dalton, but this is reinsurance, though. This is reassurance that, hey, man, if you're not getting the job done or if he regresses any more than he has, because he hasn't improved. I honestly don't think Andy Dalton hasn't improved in any of the 3 years that I've watched him. I still think of him as a mediocre quarterback, and they can't win a Super Bowl until then. A.J. McCarron at least knows how to manage the game. He knows he has an understanding. There's a possibility maybe next year that A.J. McCarron is our starter for Cincinnati instead of Andy Dalton. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but maybe next year at some point A.J. McCarron gets his number called, especially if he does well in the preseason.
Yeah, and remember, this is Andy Dalton's contract year. So if let's just say Andy Dalton gets hurt and A.J. McCarron does as well as he is, Andy Dalton won't be a Bengal anymore. I would say that. And then the Bengals will be looking for a quarterback maybe in next year's draft. But another team that at first glance I really did not like, the Jacksonville Jaguars, but as more and more I'm starting to love what they've done. They get a quarterback. They get the quarterback they believe in. They get
if they've already announced already, I don't mean to be interrupting you, but they've already announced they're not starting Blake Bortles. It's Chad Henne. Blake Bortles is going to sit behind him.
Which I like because I don't like really starting my rookie quarterbacks that fast and throw them to the dogs. Especially
if it's not ready.
Yeah, and especially also with the offensive line over there. I mean, you're getting, I believe Jokel's coming back from injury, and you want to work him in progressively, and also, maybe, and then also like the Marquise Lee pick, Allen Robinson pick, they just got more weapons because we know that Justin Blackmon will probably not play for the Jacksonville Jaguars and may not be on this team also anymore later on.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's to me this overview on this draft, there's just so many teams I like that done exceptionally well that in other drafts I would have probably said they were the best team. I like Tampa Bay Buccaneers picks. I like the Mike.
I like New Orleans.
Yeah, I like Tampa Bay. I like New Orleans.
Stanley G. Baptiste and Vinny Cincinnati in the 5th round. I mean, I didn't think Vinny Cincinnati was going to go in the 5th round, but I graded him as a 5th round. I thought he was going to probably be a 7th round or undrafted free agent prospect, but he ended up going in the 5th round, and when he was healthy, he was awesome. They also got some upside with Ronald Powell as well, too.
Right.
And
I like
New Orleans draft.
Right. I like a lot of these teams draft. Because in this, like we said, there's a lot of teams. Like either in this draft, to be honest, is either you look good because you got a lot of value in these deep class, or you just look almost completely stupid that you didn't get away with at least somebody nice in this class. And I believe most teams in the first round hit players. To be honest, there wasn't really a questionable pick. Besides the Kansas,
the Calvin Benjamin pick, I wasn't a fan of it. And I knew there was a chance of him going in the first round, but I wasn't a huge fan of it.
Right, or the Kansas City Chiefs pick, I was not a fan of that one either.
But I liked it as far as value. I just didn't like it as far as fit. As far as Kansas City, they've got to be trying to win right now. They don't have a long-term solution with Alex Smith because Alex Smith contract was not restructured, and he might not even be wanting to come back. He might not want to come back. That team's is a little bit more older than what we're giving them credit for. I mean, they're not old as dogs, but I'm just saying though. I mean, they're not. A lot of people are going to leave on that team, especially the guys like Brandon Flowers. He's probably due. They have a huge cap situation next year. I mean, I don't understand why Kansas City's not trying to go after Denver right now.
Right.
They want to sit back and watch Denver and San Diego and even possibly Oakland surpass them. I don't think that they should be doing that. They should be going for attack mode and go for players who are just going to straight come in and help them today. I didn't think D Ford or Phillip Gaines did that. Maybe DeAnthony Thomas as a kick returner, and that's pretty much it.
Right. And now the Houston Texans, we already talked about them. Javion Clowney, they hit. C.J. Fedorowicz, they also hit. I mean, Lewis Nix was by far the biggest value for them. And I already said the Houston Texans with J.J. Watt, Lewis Nix next to each other. Lewis Nix is a gap eater. He's going to take 1 to 1.5 to 2 players on an offensive line. J.J. Watt already demands a double team, if not triple team. And Clowney, who's going to block Clowney? I'm pretty sure he can do one-on-one, and we already discussed multiple times about the Clowney-Watt fit. But now they get Lewis Nix as well. That was something. Atlanta, Jake Matthews there. That was everybody knew that was coming, to be honest. And the Buffalo Bills, I did not like them trading up what they did to get Sammy. They also traded away Stevie Johnson, but E.J. Manuel's happy. He has a young team around him. He has Robert Woods, Sammy Watkins. He has C.J. Spiller. So Bills are kind of like in a win now mode, but when I look at their roster, I still don't think they're going to win really more than 8 games. They probably go 6-10. Maybe.
Yeah.
And the Greg
We
Robinson.
haven't gotten to touch on Tampa Bay, have we?
The only thing I said about Tampa Bay is if it was any other draft, I would have liked theirs a lot. Tampa Bay, Mike Evans, they got the number one where they thought they were going to sit at. They thought Mike Evans would have been gone.
Yeah, Mike Evans ended up sliding all the way down there. They've got a basketball team with him and Austin Seferian-Jenkins and Vincent Jackson.
Right.
So Josh McCown, if he maybe the solution for next year, I don't know. I know he's not the long-term solution. And they didn't address quarterback, so I don't know where they're going with that.
But they did get a lot of receivers that, if you throw the ball up, they're going to get it. Like it's not one of these slot guys where, like we talked about Sam Bradford, where he doesn't have a go-to really receiver. He has a bunch of midgets out there that are very fast. But in Josh McCown, he has 3 huge players that are all 6'5 plus. And then he also has a running game. The offensive line of Tampa Bay is really not that nice, but I believe I like Tampa Bay there. And I said Tampa Bay with Lovie Smith and what he can do. I would not be surprised if Tampa Bay does get. I don't think they would be in contention with the other teams there, but just watch out for Tampa Bay. And so that's really it for me about this draft so far. We touched on all bases, touched on most teams here. But everybody likes hearing about next year. We're always looking forward. So we have here, me and Antoine have our draft days, top 10 players, our big board for 2015. I will do the even numbers. Antoine will do I'll do the odds. Antoine will do the even. So our number 1 player is Leonard Williams, the defensive end / defensive tackle. He's just a freak of nature. He's relentless. He has a motor that just never stops. And he's going to be phenomenal on the next level.
Mm-hmm.
At number 2, who do
you... Number 2, I have Ifo Ekpe-Olumu, a guy that even his head coach was surprised that came back. I was surprised, everybody. He would have been my number 1 cornerback. I didn't think that there was a question that this guy was the best guy on tape. I don't know how he would have measured in and how he would have ran in Indy, but based on tape, Ifo Ekpe-Olumu far superior than any other cornerbacks, including even Justin Gilbert. He's my number 2 cornerback this year. Go watch Brandon Cooks versus Ifo Ekpe-Olumu. You'll see why I'm so high on him. Go watch him against Marquise Lee 2 seasons ago. And when Marquise Lee was pretty much the man, Ifo Ekpe-Olumu gave him the fight of his life.
Right. At number 3, we have Cedric Ogbuehi. I believe that's how you say his name.
That's Ogbuehi.
And, it's just a consistent thing that we have an A&M tackle up here. It's, and he is phenomenal tackle. He would have came out this year, as a guard or even as a future right tackle, left tackle prospect. And now that Johnny Manziel gone, we can actually see how a traditional tackle may play out in that kind of offense.
Mm-hmm.
And at number 4, we have
Marcus Mariota, the quarterback out of Oregon. Oregon's a really talented team this year. probably the clear-cut number one quarterback at this point. He can make all the throws. At this point, there's still some fundamental things that I would like to improve from Marcus Mariota. But overall, he's probably still the heads on top number one quarterback in this class.
Right. At number 5, we have Randy Gregory, the speed demon rusher I call out of Nebraska. Who, if he would have came out this year, he would have had some talks in first rounds as well. But he's one relentless pass rusher there at Nebraska. At 6, we have
6, we have P.J. Williams, a cornerback out of Florida State. Was a national championship MVP, made plays after plays. It wasn't just that national championship game. He was good all throughout the season. He's not afraid to get his nose in there and tackle either. And P.J. Williams is a complete corner. Probably has even a higher upside than Efo if you look at it long term. But he's not as crisp or as physical in the line of scrimmage as Efo Ekpe-Olumu.
Right. And here we have at number 7, we have Vic Beasley out of he'd be projected to play outside linebacker in the NFL for a 3-4. He plays defensive end for Clemson, but with this list, our top 10 list is here dominated by defensive linemen, also defensive players in general, and also at 8 we have another one.
Shaquille Calhoun, the defensive end out of Michigan State. I like this guy. Big, physical defensive end, always stands out on tape. If you said Darqueze Dennard is the heart and soul of the Michigan State last year, then you would probably say the meat and bones was Shaquille Calhoun.
Right,
he was the one who was making the big plays and disrupting a lot of things. A lot of the turnovers that Michigan State was getting was because of Shaquille Calhoun. Even if he's not getting a sack, he was always making a play. I like Shaquille Calhoun as a top 10 player.
And our number one receiver here at 9, and we really already came down to a consensus. We don't like this receiver group at all, as much as other people do. I don't like Amari Cooper at all as what other people project him. People have him top 5, top 10. I don't even see him even as a first-round talent, to be honest, at times. But ours is Stephon Diggs out of Maryland. And a lot of people are knocking him down because maybe they forgot about him. He did come off of a very bad injury, but he was the man. He was making all the plays out there in Maryland. His speed, his quickness, everything he was the offense over there in Maryland, and I like him a lot. If he's anything to what his freshman year was, if anything better than that, he would be a top 10 pick this year. And
at number 10, we have Ronald Darby, the second cornerback out of Florida State. And you could actually argue with either one of them being better than each other between him and P.J. Williams. There were certain games I felt Ronald Darby was the better cornerback, but that just shows you the level of competition out there at Florida State and the level of skills that they have. Ronald Darby's an outstanding cornerback as him in his own right as well, and he holds his own as well too.
Right, and that's our top 10 list. The only player we were kind of going back and forth is the only reason why we wouldn't put them in top 10 based on their positions. I had Hronis Grasu, I believe, the center out of Oregon. I love him a lot. I just don't value centers at top 10s, but if I would say clean, safe pick, overall best center, I mean, he would arguably be a top 5 player. We wouldn't worry about positions. And another one is Todd Gurley for both me and you, but we don't value.
I like Todd Gurley a lot as well too, but I haven't broken him down as much as I probably should have at this point. I haven't gotten to that as far. It's still early in the process. I hope nobody holds me down to this. If they see this 12 months from now, and they'll be like, well, you were so wrong about Randy Gregory or whatever, or whoever, or you didn't have this guy in the top 10. I hope Steve would just take this with a grain of salt if they're listening to this.
This is our earliest top 10 rankings for us. And we also have some special news here. Me and Draft Day are now, as most people know me, some of you may not know that I actually had a podcast. It was called Real Football Talk. There were some complications there, but me and Antoine have discussed that we wanted to do a podcast, a weekly podcast, not like an everyday one where we did over there with mine, but now we're doing it twice a week. We're going to give you more and more information on it later on what 2 days it would be. We're looking at Monday, Thursday, Monday, Friday, maybe Tuesday, Thursday. And we're going to be talking about all levels of competition of football from high school to NFL. And mostly high school, we're going to be talking about is recruiting, not really about, or the headline game, maybe the number 1 team versus the number 3 team. And we're going to give you a lot of great quality stuff, great topics. We're going to go headlines, and we're going to be completely honest to you. We're going to be brutally honest to you, and what separates us most from other podcasts or TV shows you watch like NFL Live or NFL Network is we're not going to take our we're going to be completely serious with you, and we're going to stand by what we say. Most of these guys fight for TV time. They say, they talk about Johnny Manziel day in, day out. I mean, we're still talking about Michael Sam when he's already went till this day about him, and he's still yet to play a down. And we're going to be honest with y'all. We're going to stick by our draft boards. I mean, Antoine here is a very good, one of the top scouts on, for his draft.
I never want to put that label scout on.
Yeah.
I don't do the work that those guys do.
But he's a very hard worker, and we will be proud to come in August. Once football season starts, this podcast will be coming on. It'll be the Real Football Talk podcast. And Antoine, let them know where you can listen to this podcast.
Right now, I'm still working the King's South and everything, but it should be on Blog Talk Radio, and you'll be able to listen to it on my YouTube channel. I will be posting it up once or twice a week. Right,
and we will have amazing content for you there. We'll have power rankings, the whole works, Heisman talks, teams, games we like. We'll break down players, everything you would expect from a great podcast, even qualities of a TV show, except you won't be seeing us, you'll be listening to us. And, maybe we'll work out some visual, we'll put up some tape, we'll put up like the little circles as they do on TV for y'all to break down players and what we project them to be. But look forward to our Real Football Talk reboot with me and Antoine coming up, and we'll see how far and how well this goes for next year's 2014 football season. But until then, guys, subscribe to my man Draft Day, follow him on Twitter, and look forward to our Real Football Talk podcast.